First, I have to say, before I get started with day 6 of the State of Florida versus Casey Anthony trial, I have to say a few things. Thank you for everybody out there who's watched. The second thing I have to say is, a lot of people are, maybe not a lot of people, but some people have expressed their anger towards me and my opinions that I put out there. Again, as I'm going to reiterate, these are just my opinions. The only thing that I'm stating are facts that the only facts that I am stating are ones that are coming out at trial and the research that I had done before the trial even started, so therefore they were facts. Um, so you can like it, you cannot like it, that's your choice. Um, and I'll respond to everybody who messages me, and like I have been doing, and respond to everybody's comments. And I will not allow ugliness on the comments. I will not allow certain people, I know who they are, who have been sending obscene messages. I will not allow them on there, but I will accept your opinion and your opinions about this case, whether you're against Casey Anthony or whether you're for Casey Anthony. Again, like I said, this is America, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. So, I want to start off, okay, day 6, 5/31/2011. Before the trial continued, Mark Lippman, George and Cindy Anthony's attorney, actually I guess is now Lee Anthony's attorney, he filed a motion to exclude Lee Anthony from being or he made a motion to exclude Lee Anthony from being sequestered. And what that means is that they were asking the court to let Lee Anthony in the trial while it is taking place. And the reason for sequestering, by Florida law definition, is it to prevent changing of testimony, what they call is coloring of testimony, and by what they hear from others. The state had no objection to Lee Anthony being in the courtroom. The defense did have objections. While Cheney Mason was talking, he had said something to the judge, and haha, everything was great and funny. And of course, Casey's laughing. He says next of kin is not defined. Uncle should not and is not the next of kin. And then he goes on to say, I don't really care about their rights, talking about Lee Anthony and George and Cindy Anthony. I only care about the rights of her. Casey deserves a fair trial. And he says he vigorously objects. The judge says, as to coloring of Lee's testimony, his deposition was taken. Baez was there. The judge's ruling was no evidence that Lee's testimony would be colored and is excluded from sequestration, meaning Lee Anthony can be in the courtroom while the trial is going on. He also made a judgment about the grand jury transcript of George Anthony, and he said nothing is inconsistent that would be beneficial to the defense. So basically, in layman's terms, they do not get George Anthony's transcript from the grand jury. Okay, continuing on with the actual case. So today was a very interesting day. I have to say, quite emotional for somebody who may have feelings and feel sympathetic towards the Anthonys, i.e. meaning Lee, George, and Cindy. Cindy Anthony retakes the stand, and the state is still on direct questioning. When Cindy said Kaylee was missing on her MySpace page, Cindy meant Kaylee was missing from her heart. Casey told Cindy she would be back in Orlando from Jacksonville with Jeff Hopkins on 7/15/2008. Then it goes into talk she talks about when her and George were doing the yard work and found the paper for the registered letter in the front door. She said when they drove the car home that it started to rain, a misty rain. George put the car in the garage. Cindy said it smelled like something had died. She took Kaylee's doll out of the car and wiped it with a Clorox wipe and sprayed it with Febreze because it had the smell. What died was an expression, and at that time was not thinking anything really had died. They had to recess for some technical problems, and then they came back. Cindy said they took the battery out of Casey's car because they were afraid Casey would come back and take the car. Removed Casey's pants from car and put them in the laundry. They showed pics of Casey's car, dryer sheet. Cindy says she put the dryer sheet there. Talks about state deposition. Cindy said she was on medication, so the dryer sheet at that time, she did not remember putting it there. And this was, for anybody who would like to look it up, was State Deposition, Volume 2, page 323, line 15. Cindy opened a purse that was in Casey's car and found a yellow envelope. Inside the envelope was resumes of Amy Huizenga that had contact numbers. Kaylee's backpack was in the trunk of Casey's car. Cindy decided to go back to work. She tried to call Casey and did not get a hold of her. At this point, Casey's reaction is she has this very mean look on her face, and occasionally she tries to force a tear out here and there. Cindy talked to Amy Huizenga, and Cindy went to pick her up. Amy took Cindy to Tony's apartment to get Casey. When Cindy first saw Casey, Cindy said, "We need to talk." Casey told Cindy Kaylee was with the nanny. Cindy said, "Well, we are going to get her." Casey reluctantly went with Cindy. Amy, Cindy, and Casey got into the car to leave. Cindy continued to ask where Kaylee was. Amy got out of the car to go home. Cindy told Casey she needed to answer her questions. Casey made excuses why Cindy couldn't see Kaylee. Cindy then decided to pull up to the Orlando police substation and realized it was closed. Cindy said Cindy had said that they were arguing at this point. Cindy said she wasn't getting the answer she wanted, so Cindy called 911. So they go into a brief recess, and the 911 call is played. This was the first 911 call. At this time, during the 911 call, Casey has a pissed off look on her face. Cindy said she did not call anyone on her way home from substation. Casey jumped out of the car and ran past Lee Anthony straight into the house. Cindy did not immediately call 911 back. Lee thought they could talk to her first. Cindy said Kaylee was sleeping and Casey didn't want to disturb her and said they could get her the next day. Cindy waited a few minutes and then Cindy called 911 again. Second 911 call was played, and this is where Cindy started breaking down. While this was going on, there was a mean look on Casey's face while the second 911 call was being played. Cindy was pacing from garage, Casey's room, and living room. Lee was in Casey's room. Cindy heard Casey tell Lee that Kaylee had been gone for 31 days and that the nanny took her. Cindy swore at her and hit the bed. Cindy said, "What do you mean she's gone? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" And Cindy started crying harder. Casey crying a few little tears, wiping them off, looking at them, trying to force them out of her eyes. The third 911 call was played, and Cindy started crying uncontrollably, and Cindy had put her head down where she was sitting. While this was going on, Casey was shaking her head no, and little to no tears from her. Cindy asked for a brief break, and at this point, Casey looks up with another mean look on her face. They come back. Cindy comes back to the stand. Cindy told George what was going on while she was on the phone with the 911 call. and she said she collapsed into George's arms. She turned over Casey's vehicle and other items to the police to help find Kaylee. A desktop computer was taken, laptop, Cindy's cell phone for a brief time while she was at the sheriff's station. DNA were also given as well. Lee set up a tip line, and then brings up when Casey called home after she was arrested, and they played the call recording of that first call that she made after she'd been arrested. Again, Casey looks very pissed off with a mean look on her face. Cindy starts breaking down again. When Kaylee comes up and the girl, I believe her name was Christina, on the phone call, she says she would die if anything happened to that little girl. Cindy really starts crying. They go to a lunch recess, and then the defense crosses. When asked by the defense, Jose Baez, if she raised Casey to tell the truth, Cindy said, I thought I did, yes. This point, now defense is talking about how Casey was a great mother, and Casey begins crying. At Cindy's brother's wedding, Cindy did not believe Casey was pregnant. Since Casey is in her cell 23 hours a day and Cindy was asked, does she have a protruding stomach? Cindy says, I haven't seen her up close, and I know she's not eating. Baez wanted Casey to stand up. They went to a sidebar, and judge allows Casey to stand up. Casey told Cindy she went to the doctor's a couple days before June 30th, 2005, and that date is when Cindy found out Casey was pregnant. At first, when Casey told Cindy that she was pregnant, Casey said Jesse was the father. After Cindy found out Jesse was not the father, Casey said a guy named Eric Baker was the father, and was a one-night stand, and he was from Kentucky or North Carolina. No father is listed on Kaylee's birth certificate. Valentine's 2006, Cindy was told about Jeffrey Hopkins and was told he worked at Nickelodeon. She had never spoken to Jeffrey Hopkins, never spoke to Jules or saw a pic, but have a phone number, and I'm not sure exactly who they were talking about. When Cindy was supposed to meet Jeff several times, it always got canceled the day of. Cindy told co-workers about Jeff Hopkins. Cindy did not know that Casey's imaginary friends were not real, as Jose Baez put it. She never spoke to a Juliette Lewis. Cindy said when she would talk to Kaylee about Annabelle, which was Juliette Lewis's daughter, Kaylee would light up and say Annabelle. She never saw a Raquel Farrow, never saw a pic or spoke to Zanny the nanny. First time Cindy heard the name Zanny was Valentine's 2006. Zanny was Jeff's girlfriend at the time Casey met her. I'm going to stop this part 1 and continue with part 2 on the next